people want to know why they're drawn to your work. They may have a sense, they may want that confirmation. They might want a story that they can pass along at the dinner party when they have people over and, oh, would you look at our new painting, or something.
Welcome to the BoldBrush Show, where we believe that fortune favors the bold brush. My name is Laura Oringo-Bayer, and I'm your host. For those of you who are new to the podcast, we are a podcast that covers art marketing techniques and all sorts of business tips specifically to help artists learn to better sell their work. We interview artists at all stages of their career, as well as others who are in careers tied to the arts in order to hear their advice and insights. On this episode, we interviewed Shawn Krueger, a contemporary landscape painter who blends the American tonalist and arts and crafts traditions. While he currently lives in Grand Rapids, Michigan, it has been the mountains of western North Carolina, the Lake Huron shoreline, or the woods anywhere that have become his more recent subject matter. In this episode, we discuss his love for the tonalist movement, how he's found success within his niche by directly reaching out to his collectors, and how his dream of showing some of his tonalist work alongside the Tonalist Society at the Salmagundi Club has come true, due to a misunderstanding which was my fault. This episode is releasing a week after the opening of the show. However, if you are still in New York City and you wish to visit the Salmagundi Club to see some of Shawn's paintings, you can still do so until this Sunday, May 7th. Welcome, Shawn, to the BoldBrush Show. How are you today?
I'm doing well. Bright and early for me, but it's good. It's good.
Yeah, it's great to have you. I know it's very early, so thank you for taking time out of your day to sit with me for this interview. So before we begin, do you mind telling us a little bit about who you are and what you do?
Well, my name is Shawn Krueger. I'm a fairly traditional landscape painter. I can see some things behind you, or behind me, rather. I kind of like to say that I have two areas of interest within my art, which one is tonalist painting, which again, you can kind of see. The other is arts and crafts, craftsman style design. This comes in, it probably comes in more obvious with my framing choices. I'm lucky to know some incredibly talented woodworkers, so I can design a thing and they'll make it for me, and it's amazing. And so that usually helps. But yeah, my art is kind of, I'm always kind of looking at areas where those two points have commonality, I guess is where I'm getting at with that. So.
Well, I like that. I like that, I think it's very sad when some painters leave the frame as a second thought. And I like that when I was looking at your paintings and how you put your paintings and even how I think you said in one interview that you prefer a certain type of wood and the way that a certain wood looks for it. Yeah. I like that. It's that attention to detail that completes the piece. And I think it's very sad when some painters just leave the frame as like, oh, it's fine.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I think, well, we would speak of quartersawn white oak, which was sort of a kind of the wood of choice for the arts and crafts. A lot of the arts and crafts furniture makers and frame people. I don't find myself all that excited about the traditional black with gold lip frames that a lot of the galleries want. Now, yeah, galleries know their audience, and I always say none of the galleries are in the painting storage business, they're in the selling business. So I mean, I definitely trust them, and there's many times when the black, the gold is the right choice. But I don't know, for me, yeah, it's sort of, it's something that I feel more in tune with. I'm painting a lot of trees, so having a natural wood seems to make sense to me. I also think on some level it maybe for a gallery that's interested in it, it sort of sets my work a little bit apart from the other woman painting trees or something. I don't know. We all look for different ways to we're all doing essentially the same thing, but we look for little ways to set ourselves apart, I guess, maybe.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah. We all have a specific vision for our work and how we want it to be presented. And
Yeah,
I agree. It's disappointing when galleries try to, I mean, they sell, like you said, they
yeah,
know what
oh,
they're
right,
doing.
no,
So it's like, okay, but it's
yeah,
still, it's like,
no.
oh.
No, and I think, I mean, I've had it too, where maybe if a particular buyer can't see past the quarter sawn oak frame, then they might find that, they might not be as interested in the painting. Maybe they don't see that, it's a frame, it can be swapped out, or it can be
Yeah, that's the
changed,
other thing.
but,
Exactly.
so yeah, it does kind of put it in one box, but it's a box I'm kind of happy to sit in, I guess, so.
Yeah. Yeah. Or else, I mean, you wouldn't do it, right? So
Right.
yeah. So what I find interesting in your work, because personally I'm not super familiar with the tonalists. I have heard of them, and I have learned about some of them, and I've even discovered that some of the artists I like are tonalists, and I had no
Yeah.
idea. Which I was like, oh, I didn't know that. Because I'm not a landscape painter, but I do paint portrait, and which is why I'm familiar with, for example, Thomas Dewing, which he's
Oh, yeah.
considered a tonalist. Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
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 No,
So
there's some great there's some great California painters too that were doing portraiture. I'm blanking now on names, but
you're good.
anyway, but yes, I will send you a recommendation off after we're done.
Yes. Yes. And if you remember them in the middle of the interview, go
Lucia
ahead and drop
Matthews.
the names.
There it is.
There
All right, Lucia Matthews is who I'm thinking of. Sorry.
I will
Fantastic.
definitely look it up, because I mean, I've always wanted to dip my toes into landscape. And actually, interestingly enough, I really, really love the French influence that the tonalists have, because it started
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, I think that gets overlooked a bit. I mean, the recent scholarship on it is that they were this, at least the later tonalists were the first core American, movement that kind of got overlooked by the time, Greenberg and the 40s came along, and the big New York painters and whatnot. But these guys, I mean, a lot of these guys were, and it's true, some of them weren't going back to Europe to study like a lot of the early ones were, but yeah, I think the Barbizon gets overlooked, quite a lot in that, in discussion of the tonalists or whatever, at least in recent discussion, maybe at least maybe what I've heard. So
Yeah, and I like that. I had no idea that they were related, and I'm like Corot's #1 fan. so
yeah,
I can see
amazing,
that,
amazing.
I can like pull into Corot and then like see like, oh, the tonalists, like when I see your work, especially like some of your moon paintings, or even like some of your sketches, like in general, all of your drawings, they give me it has a very melancholic sort of look to them. They're very, and I was reading the tonalist rules too, and there
Oh,
is it's so fascinating.
yeah, I think on the Tonalist Society site there is sort of
Yes.
something there. I think I saw that. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's part of their rules too, to make, paintings that are emotional, that are led by feeling rather than, just a striking image, which I like that. It's almost like backwards to how a lot of people
Yeah.
paint today.
I think, or maybe why I've been drawn to it for a long time was maybe I didn't feel I had the skills others did or something, but I certainly had feeling, and it probably, and a genuinely authentic feeling. And so like, if I could put that into, my work, that I don't know, that just sort of, that made it feel as though I was getting somewhere, maybe, and may not be as precise as in Hudson River School, where every leaf was painted, and every big enormous sunset and everything,
Mhm.
with a tiny figure for scale, and But I mean, somebody like, yeah, I mean, John Francis Murphy or Innes or whatnot, yeah, you just really had a sense they were painting, certainly from skill, and especially the early work was, much tighter and more academic. But I mean, just once they were finding their voice, yeah, it was from this deep well of of authentic belief in what you were seeing and feeling and your reaction and whatnot to the landscape. So,
Yes.
and I'm not a natural landscape. I never lived in a big city, but I've never been out in the country either. So the landscape wasn't exactly a natural go-to. I didn't have that. But so when I paint outside, I'm often feeling a little uneasy, could be temperature things or whatnot, or, people or, but I painted North Carolina, there's, there could be a bear at any moment,
Yeah.
I've painted, painting along the river and, water moccasin, comes sliding out over in front of me and the rocks. Like, there's a little bit of edginess to what you're doing, I guess. So I don't know.
Yeah. It's, I think plein air might be the most dangerous form of painting.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it's really wonderful that, I did see your series on the paintings you did on the Appalachian Trail. I call it Appalachian. I know some people call it Appalachian or
Yeah.
I don't even know.
I'm not sure either. I'm still a northerner, although again, with not much going on in Michigan, I probably feel like I'm more of a local artist in Asheville, North Carolina than I am anywhere. But yeah, there's a pace to life down there, which it's changing because everybody's descending upon Asheville. Asheville's getting a lot of influx of new people coming in. It's always on a lot of tourist destination kind of websites, and a lot of people retiring there. So I don't know, what local, what constitutes a long time person anymore there. But it's I don't know, it's just a way, I don't know, I feel more at ease down there. I don't know, and it's not just hiking around mountains and doing stuff. I mean, I get the same kind of feeling, I guess, hiking around woods in Michigan and painting, or being along, Lake Huron or, whatnot. But I don't know, there's just sort of something that's drawn, it's a quieter, it's epic, but it's not like Catskills epic or White Mountains epic or something, or, where you are, in Norway, whereas, so yeah, I don't know. There are lower mountains, there's fog, there's atmosphere, there's, I don't know, things that play into my predilections, I guess, for tonal painting. So
I mean, I went camping in the Appalachian Trail a few years ago, and it definitely has a very, I call it a spooky feeling.
Yeah. Oh,
it's
remarkable. Well, there's all kinds of, American Civil War history there, and I had this amazing hike with friends this summer, and I was down for a show, and we traipsed up into Tennessee to go for this hike, and this great swimming hole and everything, and apparently it was this huge massacre of troops and whatnot was like in this spot, and it's
oh my god,
you don't you don't see that, but then you can't unsee it once you so then it's sort of like we're all jumping around and swimming and all that. This would be a pretty good place to be attacked. I mean, like it's all coming in from above, so
yes,
I don't know,
that's true.
It's depressing.
And, it is depressing, but that's the other interesting rule that I did see on the Tonalist website, which is that some of the pieces should represent like I guess kind of like the sadness that's left behind after the Civil War.
Yeah,
and you can
right. No, that was a huge part of it. I mean, and it sort of dictated too, like some of the scale. I think there was a economic depression as well, and so people were doing, the galleries were encouraging a lot of the artists to do more modestly scaled pieces, watercolor, different things that could be, you know, more easily sold. But, and I mean, but a lot of these guys were city guys that went up to the, you know, they had studios in Lower East Side, but they'd go up to, you know, Massachusetts or New Hampshire and Vermont, you know, and do their spend their summers sketching, and then come back to the Lower East Side and make all these amazing studio paintings from these sketches. But yeah.
Yeah. And then that also brings me to that, where a lot of tonalist painters, and even in your work too, and a lot of other landscape painters, they will go out into the field, right? And they will paint a sketch or paint like the first impression of something, and then they'll take it back to the studio, and then they'll create a bigger piece. How does that work for you? How do you do that?
I do. I mean, the going out and the sketching is the fun part. I don't tend to do a lot of larger pieces. The ones behind me are more in the 8x10, 9x12 sort of range, with the exception of this, which is still only 16 by 24 or something. But that feels like, you know, a mural to me on a lot of ways. But
Yeah.
I think I lose I struggle to keep, I should say, I struggle to keep the immediacy that I have in the sketch when I try to scale up. So I tend to just finish the sketches in the studio, and that ends up being the bulk of my work. But yeah, I don't do as well large scale. I don't think. I don't know. That's,
Yeah. You know, we have our own ways of, I guess, creating our work where it does what we want it to do. It's already hard enough to manage oil paint.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and I think though too, there's sort of it's gotten to be a bit of a practical matter. Especially with the arts and crafts crowd, tends to be a lot of folks maybe, you know, stereotypical, but I mean, they're redoing an old house. You know, a lot of old houses don't have room for, you know, large pieces.
True.
But they might have, you know, between two door jams, they might have spot for a nice little vertical of some sort, or they might be able to slide something in on top of a bookcase or something like that. So, I mean, arts and crafts design is definitely, you know, it's very object driven. So, I mean, if there's a place to put something, I mean, and people like the collectors, they're working on these little vignettes of like, well, this is my table, and then the table will have this, and it's an interesting way. So I mean, it's been, and I'm like one of very few painters that are in some of the shows that we do. A lot of it's pottery, tile, you know, metalwork, different things like that, and so yeah, I kind of find myself fitting, you know, into that a little bit, but it's good, and I enjoy it. I enjoy doing that way. So
Yeah.
it doesn't feel as limiting, or that I'm not I'm not lacking by not scaling up, but I don't know.
Well, you know, if it works, it works. If it ain't broke, you know. Yeah, and one of the qualities that I really like about your work is the transparency. And I'm really fascinated by it because I did learn, you know, at school we have like the direct painting and then indirect painting, and I know that you mostly focus on indirect painting. So a lot of glazing and a lot of, you know, transparency. Why did you go in the route of painting transparently?
Well, I had my college experience was I learned a lot about composition and painting directly, but my first studio experience, or studio assisting experience outside of school, was working for this other artist. And you know, one of the things he told me the first day was, you know, well, come with a painting you don't care about, or you know, is something that's not, you know, any brought it in and he slathered this like, it must have, it was like alizarin rose crimson something in there, this pink, this very intense pink over it, and kind of, and I just watching it kind of flow into the old brush strokes and whatnot, and it just sort of, it gave it this thing that this patina, for a lack of a better term, that you wouldn't be able to accomplish very easily by painting direct. And I think too, when I was starting out, I didn't always know what I was doing, but I could always throw another glaze over it and see what happens. And so you start getting that way of working in your head. And you start thinking about, I've often found it fairly liberating too, because now when I go out to do plein air work, I pretty much leave with a monochrome sketch, because I think about how what I'm painting now will get all these layers of glaze later. So I'm painting like, the warm underpainting for the cool, overpainting, that kind of thing. But I'm often thinking about, 4 or 5 steps ahead. Like, well, okay, if I do this now, then I'm good, which is always a little funny when you see somebody, the looky-loos or whoever comes up to talk to you while you're painting, why are you, like, I have a plan, don't worry. check my website in a year, it'll all make sense, but
Yeah. It's a process that requires like trust and a lot of experience, which is why I was so curious. It's like you
well,
said,
yeah,
you're thinking 5 steps ahead with every stroke you're
yeah,
putting down.
yeah. I paint my good friend Justin in Indianapolis. We'll go out painting together and go down near Indianapolis is Brown County, Indiana, which is a large historic place where there were just a big movement of work over time, and we'll go paint plein air painting, and he'll knock out 3, he'll knock one out while I'm like getting set up, and then he'll knock out another one while I feel like laid in my initial thing and whatnot. So yeah, but he's quick and he sees things very fast, and I envy that. But yeah, I don't know. I think I'm probably more methodical. I just even in my day-to-day life of thinking about things or whatever, I'm slower, I guess. So this, it makes sense that I've ended up painting that way too. So
Yeah, I can relate with that, which is what I mean personally. I also learned both methods. So I'm at that stage where I'm figuring out what do I like to do, and I can totally relate with taking your time and like not feeling rushed and
yeah,
really trying to feel it out, because I'm also very much led by how I'm feeling versus what I'm seeing, because that's the beautiful thing about the tonalist paintings is that when you look at a tonalist painting, you don't care about the specific details. You're caring about the whole image as a mood and what it evokes, rather than, oh, and this little flower over here and this little thing over there, right?
yeah,
Unless it adds to the mood, which is,
sure,
but yeah, but that's what I really like about tonalism.
yeah. Well, and I think too, like if there was any sort of silver lining to the last 3 years of pandemic and all the stuff, was that there were certainly fewer demands on a person in terms of galleries weren't looking for new work. They were, if they were open at all, they were and I had a large show with my gallery in North Carolina in the fall of 2019, so which sold okay, but they were set. They didn't need to. They didn't need. Whereas they usually. So the point was that I had that time to work, but I also had that time to really. There wasn't any rush on anything. Yeah. I didn't have a show coming up. I didn't have this coming up, or so I could kind of draw them out a little bit more. And I don't know. I think that was kind of it it fit with where I wanted to be working. So I think the work that I've kind of done coming out of the pandemic has changed a bit in that, yeah, there is probably a little more draftsmanship, to it or something, because I had the time to do that, and I've realized the benefit of doing that. So now this is just how it is. So I will, I will continue to make one painting to Justin's three, but but it will be it'll be okay.
Well, I think your work is more than okay. I think your work is very beautiful. So
Thank
I
you.
think you're doing great. Even if you just pop out one and your friend's popping out three,
Right.
everyone does their own thing.
Exactly.
Yeah. So I also read in an interview that, you referred to yourself as what was it? It was miserably happy as a painter. And I was so curious about when you went from, working like a day job like a lot of us do when we're starting out, to becoming a miserably happy painter. How did that happen? And was it a challenge to shift into that?
Um, well, I mean, yeah, I mean, what I meant probably with that is, careful what you wish for, because
Mm,
it's it's good to have that. I don't know. There is a benefit to having that safety net where you don't have to worry about, well, if I don't sell these paintings, I'm not gonna, make my rent or make my mortgage or eat. You know, but I mean, this was the goal all along. This is everything. This is what I wanted. I mean, what I envisioned when, it's what you envision when you're in art school, that you're going to, you know, stay in your jammies and just make stuff, and people are going to buy it, and um, sometimes that bears out, but I mean, you just have to realize that some days it's just work, and it's a different it's a different slog to the other slog that you used to do, and
yeah.
that's okay too. I think anyone that's this isn't news to anyone that's made made a career for themselves, but I mean, yeah, I think it was just that shock, and I'm happy, but boy, I'm not I'm not happy.
I totally
So,
understand. Yeah. Because
yeah.
it's like, it's that struggle of like, this is what I love. And then, but also now you're relying on this thing to provide for you. So I understand the miserably happy thing.
Well, I think too, there was a bit of added, maybe a bit of added urgency, I guess. My son came along right around the
Mhm.
same time that my wife and I were making the decision for me to go full time as a painter, and I think that sort of upped my desire to succeed, I guess.
Mhm.
I don't know. I think again, I'm always, like my painting, I'm thinking into the future. So I think of, I was holding him thinking, what's he gonna think 20 years from now, or something. And I didn't want him to, well, my dad was a good painter, but he could never really make it work, or he could never, do stuff. I'm excited because, we have this show in New York coming up, and I get to, take him along, and well, you know, I'm a tiny part of a tiny show in a very big city, but like dad, dad, he gets to go, and why did we go to New York? Well, dad had a show, it's kind of cool.
It is.
Yeah, I don't, I think, yeah, I don't know, there was that pressure. I never wanted him to think of me as a loser,
Oh.
like in that way. I mean, that's yeah, I mean, there's a lot more to it than that, but I mean, it's just yeah, I wanted him to see me as successful, and so that put a lot of emphasis in my mind, and how then do you become successful? And I am not there yet, but um, but he
I disagree, but
Well, I mean,
It depends
it's
on your
not,
definition of success. Maybe you have certain goals you haven't reached yet, but I think you have definitely reached, a very good measure of success, considering that you can live from your work, you can sell work, and you have a collector base. So that's a lot. I mean, there are a lot of
it's,
other painters out there starting out who don't really have that.
oh, right, no, and
Yeah.
yeah, I don't take any of that, lightly or for granted. I mean, I mean, I grew up pretty, pretty pretty austere. So I already feel like I'm, I have more than I deserve anyway. So it's or more than I should have gotten, So I mean, it's good, but you just I always I always think of it like I don't know, painting anything, any progression in life is sort of like an ant climbing a staircase where it's really hard
Mm.
for a while, and then it gets you right when you get to that toe edge, it gets even harder because you have to go upside down, and then but then it smooths out and it's pretty good for a while, and then okay, well, here we
Then
go.
you gotta go up again. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I think, yeah, there's something to that just I don't know. It feels like an apt analogy, I guess,
It
to
is. It is. Yeah.
and
I
it could
think.
be to anyone doing anything. I mean, I don't know.
Mhm. Yeah. Now more than ever, it's crucial to have a website when you're an artist, especially if you want to be considered a professional in your career. Thankfully, with our special link, fasto.com/podcast, you can make that come true and also get over 50% off your first year on your artist website. Yes, that's basically the price of 12 lattes in 1 year, which I think is a really great deal considering that you get sleek and beautiful website templates that are also mobile friendly, e-commerce, print on demand in certain countries, as well as access to our marketing center that has our brand new art marketing calendar. And the art marketing calendar is something that you won't get with our competitor. The art marketing calendar gives you day by day, step by step guides on what you should be doing today, right now, in order to get your artwork out there and seen by the right eyes so that you can make more sales this year. So, if you want to change your life and actually meet your sales goal this year, then start by going to our special link, faso.com/podcast. That's faso.com/podcast. BoldBrush would also like to give a huge thank you and shout out to Chelsea Classical Studio for their continued support in this podcast. If you're interested in archival painting supplies that are handmade with a lot of patience, then go check out their Instagram at CCS Fine Art Materials. Yeah, I think the worst thing that anyone could be with their work is satisfied.
Yeah, I mean, it's good to take a moment and enjoy, like, and some art openings coming up, and I mean, it's fantastic to take a moment to enjoy that, and to have think about, well, this is good work. I've done good work. I'm in good company. This is really good. But yeah, I think the minute you becomes focused or satisfied on that, I mean, I don't know. It stops the growth, or it's yeah. So I fight that. I want to be satisfied, and I want to think what I'm doing is good, but I know I could be better, and I know I can do more with it, get a wider audience, hopefully, maybe, I don't know, but I mean, just something. I mean, it doesn't take away the work is good. I mean, and that could be, agreed upon, but I mean, it's I don't know, if you don't decide to settle, or if you don't stay satisfied, if you kind of keep that hunger a little bit, you're going to keep, it's going to logically, or it's going to just naturally work out. You're going to get better if you stay focused on not being that this is not, the
Not
end
settling.
result. Yeah, I don't know. I'm jumping around a lot on that, but
No, but I can follow that because You know, and I think that also comes down to how, a lot of artists, they fall into a formula of, okay, this is what the people like. So I'm just
Yeah,
gonna do this. And that they plateau. I just like kind of like
yeah,
paint.
oh yeah.
It plateaus. Yeah.
Well, and I think that might have been, I think a little bit about that sometimes with regard to where, because I did show work early on here in Michigan with galleries and doing shows, and I got a little award here or there, and those were great, but then it put you in that box. And I was with a gallery that I was trying to maybe expand, or I had this notion. I was doing landscapes, but I got very, you're young, you're looking, well, I mean, anybody looks at a lot of art books, but my favorite thing about art books was that that you'd have figure 17-1, which was the painting, and then 17-2 was the detail, the zoom in on something. And I found myself really excited about that, and like doing autumn scenes where and so they would kind of get a little abstract, and a lot of dots and whatnot. But I I was expressing excitement about that, but the gallery was kind of liking to remind me of the things that they'd been selling, and so I probably started the meter running on that relationship. But again, I just wasn't so satisfied. But then again, I've come back to doing fairly open traditional landscapes, and so
Yeah.
maybe they were, I don't know. But
I mean, I and oh my God, our careers is so particular because it's so much about exploration as
mhm,
well. And that's, I think, one of the risks of having a gallery very early, as
yeah,
artists. It's they can start dictating your work instead of,
yeah,
giving you that space to like explore. And maybe you will go back to what they were originally doing and you do full circle,
right.
and that's fine. But maybe you need that exploration phase.
Yeah, well, I mean, and again, like if you're coming out of art school and mom and dad weren't paying for it or something, and you had the idea of like getting in somewhere and selling work. And I mean, but too, it was the late 90s. For me, there was a lot of fun money out there. I think a lot of people were doing well with their uh 401ks because of the tech, you know the late 90s tech stuff.
Hmm.
So I mean, if I had started my career in the middle of the Bush years, like where there was a lot of big economic downturn and whatnot, maybe I would have, I don't know. It felt like I just kind of I came out at the right time too, where all of a sudden there were some sales, and I mean, it was low dollar compared to where want to get to, but I mean, it built that level of confidence and whatnot. But again, like I didn't, um, I just didn't want it to be. I didn't want it to be the thing. And there are a lot of, there are plenty of artists, that I don't know, they make the same painting over again, or that always kind of sits sits weird with me, or something. I mean, I'm not trying to throw shade or anything, but I mean,
No,
just
yeah. Yeah.
but
Um, yeah, we're all different in how we do that. Because I mean, personally, maybe I would want to paint something again, but not, and this is the important part, not because of the gallery, but rather because maybe I want to re-explore it in a different
yeah.
way. That's a little
Oh,
different. Yeah.
sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, I've got the same little 400-yard stretch of trees and rocks in Lake Huron, that I will, there's 500 paintings in that spot. I've maybe done 60 of them so far, but it's I mean, I there's absolutely nothing wrong with revisiting a theme or whatever,
Hmm. Yeah.
but yeah, I don't know. I shouldn't be so snarky, I guess. I don't know.
Well, it's, it's mostly for the people listening to maybe get another opinion, right? To hear like from your experience, like how you've handled your work and how you've taken it. And some people might resonate and some people won't, and that's
Sure.
perfectly fine. Yeah.
Sure.
So I definitely resonate. So you're safe. You're safe.
Well, that's
Yes.
as
Yeah.
long, yeah, it's just the two of us, watching and listening to this, so it's all good,
True.
right?
Yes. Right now, yes. I'm sure we'll get great feedback though, because it's not often we get, a tonalist styled landscape painter on it.
Yeah,
And I mean the podcast is still pretty young, but I
sure.
also think we've had a huge revival in the tonalism form of painting and in the realist world as well. Got a huge
Yeah,
revival in the past 20 or so years. More than anything, the growth has been insane in my opinion.
yeah,
So I think, it's worth hearing someone like you who's a tonalist, who has worked in this way, who, has a particular method for these things. So maybe there's someone out there listening who's like, those are all the things I am, And I
do
think that's so
you paint
cool.
with secondary colors,
Yeah.
like it might just, yeah, no, I just
But secondary colors are awesome. So
oh yeah, no, I joke with that. I was at a booth one time with one of the shows, and somebody had said something along the lines of, "Oh, I prefer my paintings to be more colorful," or something like that. And I kind of wanted to chase her down, like, these are colorful. They're just it's just purple into brown and orange into brown and green into brown.
mhm.
It's color. You prefer different colors, is what you mean, ma'am.
True. Yes. Yes. And what I find also interesting about monochromatic paintings is that you can have a monochromatic painting, but you just put a hint of color and it's immediately colorful.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
No, it's an economy, and just yeah. I mean, gray. I mean, graying color like intensifies color sometimes too. It doesn't feel like it would, but I mean it yeah, it does. I don't know.
Yeah. It's like a
Chromatic
really
gray.
good, it's like a
Yeah,
good buffer, It's like,
yeah,
it's like a rest for the eyes. And then I don't know, it's magical. I
well,
personally use only 4 colors on my palette and that's it.
yeah.
So, and you can get
And do you
everything.
do like a Zorn type?
Yeah, basically
Okay,
the Zorn. Yeah.
I'm
It's so
this guy here was, apart from the sky, no, it's not showing up nearly. But yeah, I did a lot of. I'm pretty much worked on that with transparent Zorn colors and opaque Zorn. Like I kind of would do a mix and match. So then I wanted something a little more colorful for this guy. But I'm obsessed. I'm kind of late to the game on this. I mean, like if I heard, I heard about it for a lot of years, and then
Mhm.
but was too skittish to ask what it was all about. I finally Googled it and like, oh, well,
There
I'm
you
kind
go.
of using a lot of that stuff already. So, but yeah, I
Mhm.
like the limited palette thing, especially
Me too.
painting plain air. It's
Interesting.
you can, and that, yeah, and then also too with the painting with these doing these oil sketches and whatnot. I mean, I'm picking a transparent pigment that's full, that's pretty opaque, full bodied, but when you thin it, it gets this really nice range of
Mhm.
colors. There's some, yeah, just yeah, that you get a nice, yeah. I mean, and again, what's a good painting about really is kind of value and composition. So, um,
Mhm.
you know,
Definitely.
yeah,
Yeah, and I what I like personally about the Zorn palette is that it's harmonious with itself,
yeah,
which I like. It's so hard when you have like 3 different reds and 3 different yellows and then sometimes you just make mud, you know?
yeah.
It's really hard to make mud with the Zorn palette.
It is. It is.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Things that you think are going to, there's the one part of the triangle keeps it from going where you think it might go or something.
Mhm.
I don't know. Hard to explain, but
It is. But it's nice because it keeps all the colors like clean, if that makes
Mhm.
sense. It keeps them like,
Oh yeah. Oh
oh,
yeah.
I love it.
No, that's why it's appealing to me because again, I play in the mud a lot, and um, yeah, I like to, but but
Mm,
but yeah, I have
yeah.
this one guy that always is on me about never having blue skies or whatever at my shows, and I always think, well, come on. Why- I yeah, I would have to put blue paint down on my palette.
Mm,
I don't tend to do that, so
yeah. I also feel uncomfortable putting blue on my palette now. But what's really nice too is if you pick a specific black, you'll get a different gray. You'll get or like blue, like ivory black. You will get the
oh right.
iciest
Oh,
blue.
it reads blue. I mean,
Hmm.
it's not blue, but it reads blue, or
Hmm.
and yeah. Oh yeah. No, I think that's really great.
Yes,
Yeah, I
it's
like, and again,
versatile.
that was the years of throwing different glazes over things. You kind of build up that vocabulary, so to speak. I don't know, that knowledge or whatever, like the how to get to different things. It's probably like my son with math now. They always
Oh,
talk about new math, and they ways to achieve the result or whatever. And I always like, I'll help him with something or he'll show me something, and there's 20 different ways to you know if the answer is 12, there's 20 different equations you can come up with to get to 12.
mm,
You know, he's a smart kid, so he he gets kind of frustrated when he has to, 13th way, 14th way, all these different
oh,
things.
yeah.
So, but I find it really interesting, just yeah, you can mix this and this and get close, and then or you think it's going to go a certain way, and then it's like, oh no, that's just like these other two that I was using, or something. So
Mm, yeah. Yes. We can go into much further depth into color because it's crazy. But I'm curious to know a bit about your marketing side because like you mentioned earlier, you seem to have started your career at a very ideal time, which is brilliant. But now we are in a world of the internet, and
yes,
it really helps in the playing field, if that makes sense. It
yeah,
helps you get connected. So do you mind sharing a bit of how you've used social media as a way to market your work, or even, the internet in general?
I don't know if I, I think I have to divide it into Instagram 10 year, for the last first 7 years of Instagram, or my involvement with Instagram, and then what's happened now, which I feel very adrift now because of like algorithms and how to making reels or something. I don't know how
Mm-hmm.
to do that. It's quite lucky we're able to do this. I'm just not I'm not a very technically savvy person. And Jonathan is always, oh, make some videos of you painting or something. And I think, how am I gonna do that when like, so I don't own a tripod.
Oh,
I should go buy a tripod. Okay.
yeah.
Anyway, so no, but marketing, I mean, I don't know. I don't know. I feel like I just sort of try to put like my authentic self into a post, I guess. I don't know that it's, I mean, I can read the analytics on it and see that it, didn't get to that many people, but I feel like I have kind of, it feels like a lot of the times the people that buy my paintings buy one and then buy a second and buy a third, and I go deep, less and not broad. And I find that too with the arts and crafts crowd. It's a very where I will do shows that are geared specifically toward the arts and crafts crowd, and not so much like art fairs where I'm one of 75 painters in the with their tents and whatnot. So I kind of try to micro focus like where I think I want my work to be. I mean, I reach out to galleries and, with some success and some, rejection and whatnot. But I kind of try to find places that I think are going to be a good fit, which just it makes perfect sense to do that. But I mean, like really kind of look at is this a place that looks like they would sell work that I do, but they already have 5 people that do what I do, and so like, no, this probably isn't the right fit, or they're gonna, that's gonna be a no. But yeah, marketing, I don't, I wish I knew more about it, in that how to use it to my advantage, I guess. I think I probably have an old model of thinking, and
I think you've done it in, like you said, it's like the old model, which it works. I mean, you're selling work, you have work behind you that's beautiful, and it sells. And like you said, you go into the depth rather than breadth of
yeah,
reaching people. And that's one of the best things you can do, especially with marketing, even if it's not social media, if it's like real life, you seek out the exact place where those people coalesce, and then you just go and you're like, hey, check it out, look at my paintings, you like
right,
this? And then they buy like 10.
yeah.
Yeah.
I don't find a lot of my collector base on social media very much. I don't find that they're there, or they're, I mean, I find people somebody will reach out and buy something, want to buy something because they saw it on Instagram or something, but I mean, that's it's a pretty crowded field there.
Yeah.
So again, and I've come to find, yeah, like the people that buy my work, they're not Instagram people anyway. I mean, but it's the only thing I have. So I've never had a Facebook page. I've never done TikTok. I've never done any of these things. I usually, they're usually old news by the time I hear about them. So Instagram I just did because we had I think I started in 2013, 14 because we had a new son, and I thought, well, this would be a good way to show pictures of him without having to, send 20 different emails, this, that, the other. So I don't know. It's nice. I mean, it's when the things that I like about Instagram, I like a lot. There's a lot of it I really, doesn't play well to my nature, I guess, jealousies and things like that.
Yeah.
You see other people doing fantastically well, and yes, oh right, no.
They seem that way, but
Oh yeah,
it's a lot about what things seem like, I guess.
yes,
So it can be a challenge when you're on there, and like you said, you see other people who seemingly are having a lot of success, and maybe they are, and that's great.
yeah.
But it's hard to stay, I guess, hopeful.
Well, I'm not, I don't think I have the disposition for, I've never entered a bold brush painting contest, because I couldn't, I don't know if I always see all these people happy to be in the top 15 or, something like that. I'm like, what if I don't end up in the top 15?
Oh.
I'm going to be set back for weeks, so I just have this, I have this, where I see people, make the work I wish I was making or something. I mean, that properly channeled, that's great, but
Yeah, it can be a
on
challenge.
your darker days, it's
Yeah, that's true.
a
That's
lot.
true. Yeah. But I do think it's great that you have the skills, because think about it. I mean, how many artists today are, maybe my age or younger, and they don't know how to people, you know?
Yeah,
You know how to people because that's how you had to people to
right.
get your
No,
work
I mean,
sold.
and that had to be learned. I mean, that was definitely moving into booth shows and like
Mm,
talking. I mean, again, I mean, we're all painters, so we're used to a fair degree of isolation. So yeah, solitude, isolation, whatnot. I mean, even with partners and families and whatnot. And you're essentially they're working by yourself, and
mhm.
so that's. But yeah, it's important to people want to know why they're drawn to your work. I
Yeah.
think they want to know why. They may have a sense. They may want that confirmation. They might want they might want a story that they can pass along at the dinner party when they have people over, and, oh, would you look at our new painting, or something.
Yes.
The artist said this, and I mean, I'm not, I don't, that's fine too. But yeah, I think people, I don't know. And I find, again, like with the arts and crafts crowd, there's an off, yeah, I said, I guess maybe they're just looking, they look for things that are made by a person, with that breathes, or at one time breathed,
Yeah.
so yeah, I don't know.
Yeah. No, I like that. You have such a specific crowd, that you can easily like, well, maybe not easily, but that you can reach out to who would appreciate your work. For example, on Instagram, it's like you're just putting it there for
Yeah.
everyone. And
Oh, right.
maybe yeah, which makes it really challenging, but you end up
Well, and
attracting the
galleries
right
too.
crowd.
I mean, I said you make small paintings that are a little more muted and whatnot, and they're gonna navigate their way to the corners of the gallery where the big,
Yep.
showy things are there, and I've never made work that shouted,
Hmm.
so
Interesting.
it's yeah, yeah, I don't know. It seems simple, but you don't take no for an answer when it or the answer, like that when you get told no to about a gallery turns you down, or worse yet, just ignores you.
Mm.
You know if you just like, well, that wasn't my path. I mean, that wasn't the door it was meant to open, or whatever.
Hmm.
You just keep trying doors. Eventually, it's a thief, right? You try enough doors, one of them's gonna be open.
Try a window.
But I mean, like it it kind of bears out. I mean, it's just, so you just be persistent and be true to your craft and true to yourself, and but be open to open to ideas. And it said, like, if Jonathan hadn't suggested this, I would never have reached out to like talk. Would anyone like to talk to me in a podcast? No,
Course.
that
Yes.
wouldn't have been me, to do something like that. So yeah, we
Oh.
need to listen to people too. So
Yeah, and that also brings up the nice part about social media, which is you get fans. You get people who admire your work and admire you, and they get to hear you talk, and I'm sure there are people who will be excited to hear what you have to say. So,
I hope so.
yeah, I think so. I think so. So I want you to tell us about your two upcoming shows. You have one with Vining Gallery and Aubin
Yes,
Gallery.
yes.
Yes. Can you tell us about this?
So vining is it's going to be a pretty large. It's a lot of wall space to fill. So I think we're settling in on 66 pieces for the show.
Amazing.
So it's It's in Indianapolis, and Indianapolis is. I have not found anything quite like it. There are a lot of really solid painters there, and artists or other, not and beyond painting too, but uh it seems like volume is kind of a big thing, and but people will, there's a young, I don't know, it seems like there's kind of a young collector base there, and it's a pretty and I grew up in Indiana, so it's kind of like coming home a little bit, although I didn't grow up in Indianapolis, but yeah, I don't know, it's just it's a large show, and so that's been kind of fun to navigate. I think I had one larger show than this, but it was consisting of a lot of very small paintings, so this is probably the largest thing I've done. Also doing a workshop for the first time leading up to that, so teaching, kind of trying to get hopefully getting what's in my head about underpaintings and working transparently into a format that will make sense to people, and so I'll do some demo, and we'll have some exercises, and I've got some tools for them to use and some of the things, and I'm excited about that, so that's good. Event gallery is just it's a landscape show, kind of a group show, but I mean the talent pool with that gallery is so remarkable. So just to be kind of asked to be part of that is pretty cool. Yeah, I'm not even 100% sure who all else is in the show, but they don't have any bad landscape painters there, so it's gonna be really good. So yeah, always excited to do stuff with them, and they have they're a brick and mortar place in Denver with a couple of storefronts, and then they're also but they have just a really great internet business, so they reach people well out. I mean, for however many paintings I've sold from them, I'm guessing very few of them are actually to folks in Denver. So it's a good gallery to be with. So I'm really happy to continue to be with them. So
That's great. And then you also mentioned you are most excited about something that's happening at the Salmagundi Club this
yeah,
April. Yeah, tell us about it.
yeah. Well, I mean, it's the the second biennial of the American Tonalist Society, and I kind of recall my getting involved with them the first time. We had a first show, it was 2019, and then obviously the pandemic caused a few things. We did a virtual show. I think the plan overall was to do one every 2 years in person at the Salmagundi, and then some sort of there was some connections to the artsy site or something that they had, so that it made sense to do something virtual too. But anyhow, the first time in 2019, I mean, I'd certainly been to New York many times, but just to have, there were so many people that I looked up to over the years that were members of this club, or president of the club, Franklin DeHaven or Bruce Crane or anything, and you walk around there, and it's this. It was just a club where they socialized. It was an art club. It was a club for artists. So but they still do so many of the things. So I'm hoping to maybe try to become a out-of-state member someday for this. But anyway, just to be on those walls, I because I'm always kind of have one eye back towards history and whatnot. Like I always appreciate being in, like, my gallery in North Carolina is part of it was a building that housed Vanderbilt woolen mills like 100 years ago. In East Aurora, New York, where a part of this guild for a while, I was with a gallery that was in furniture of Roycroft, which was kind of one of these utopian communities that sprung up, and there's a whole, I mean, I can go well into that, but I like being in historic places because then it sort of feels like you're on part of the continuum. And so, as I said, it's like most Salmagundi shows, it's a two weekend, with the week in between a fair. They have a pretty short life, but I think they, I don't know, for somebody like me, who's, I don't want to say happy to be in the room, but just happy to be in the room. But I mean, there is something to, I mean, the painting, the painters there are amazing. I mean, and so just to be kind of part of that is pretty cool. And you've been, I assume, have you been? Yeah, I mean,
I have.
And I think for me, like, it's about the only place that would really, I can't think of galleries in New York that would necessarily take my kind of work so much. Like, you need some kind of a quieter, more contemplative setting, like that place is just, you walk in off Fifth Ave and it just gets immediately quiet.
Yes.
And
like going back in time.
Yeah. And so anyway, it's just, yeah, it's yeah, I don't want to be satisfied with things, but if that was the pinnacle, then getting to show there every couple of years with a Tonalist show, that I I could be quite happy about that.
Yes, absolutely. And funny enough, the interview that I read that you did, you were actually talking about how badly you wanted your work to be at the Salmagundi Club. And then like a year
Really?
later, it happened. I was like, look at that. Look at that timeline. You did it.
Yeah, I forgot about that. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, isn't
Well,
that crazy?
I mean, I don't know that yeah, if it, I mean, it just makes sense because of the history of this club that this show happens there. I mean, it's, yeah, I mean, I'd like, as I said, maybe I could find find somebody to, I think you can be sponsored by a member to put your portfolio. So I've had a few people over time who've said they'd be willing to, put their name behind me, which I think is quite touching.
Yeah.
So yeah, but for now, I mean, like, this is, I'm just a, like, middle-aged guy in the Midwest painting by himself, like, and not to be all shucks, about it, but I mean, like, hey, it's a good chance. It's the chance I'm going to have to show in New York. So,
Yeah, and it could lead to more stuff, so you never know.
One never knows.
Yes. Life will take you places, and you just got to go with the flow.
Yeah, no, that's yeah, no, that's borne out so far, I guess. So,
Oh man. Well, thank you so much, Shawn. This was really wonderful.
I've enjoyed it a lot. Thank you.
Yeah, me too. This was great.